Adjustment meeting for the Township of Georgian Bay for Friday, February the 13th. I call this meeting to order as of 10 o'clock. I would like to begin with an acknowledgement that we are working on the land traditionally occupied by the Indigenous peoples. Indigenous people continue to care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that were signed as we consider our decisions and actions. I would ask all members in attendance or online if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest. Seeing none, I would expect that everyone has had an opportunity to read the minutes of our December 5th Committee of Adjustment meeting. And I would ask that we have a resolution moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of December 5, 2025 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 2 consent applications and 5 minor variance applications. If you wish to be notified of the decision of these applications, please enter your name on the sheet on the table in front here, or you can register online as well. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be followed for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any information that is relevant. The clerk will summarize any correspondence on file, and from there, the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applications. The consent applications being considered this morning are B25-06 for 1701 Honey Harbour Road and B25-12 for 40608 and 40734 Georgian Bay Shore. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A25-46 for 20 Island 2060, A25-51 for 13730 Georgian Bay Shore, A25-52 for 46 Forest Lane, A25-53 for 385 Archies Road, and A26-02 for 150 Sanctuary Road. To the clerk, please.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notice was sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you. Our first consent application is B25-06 for 1701 Honey Harbour Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The subject lands are located less than 2 kilometers from the Honey Harbour coastal waterfront community area, having a lot frontage of 90 meters on Honey Harbour Road and an area of 29.33 hectares. The lands are designated rural within the district and township official plans and are identified as containing a provincially significant wetland with moderate to high archaeological potential and a low to moderate wildfire hazard rating. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever the subject lands that have merged on title. The lands to be retained have a frontage of 90 meters and an area of 5.46 hectares, while the lands to be severed have no frontage and a total area of 23.87 hectares. For clarification, where abutting lands are owned by the same individual and are not whole lots on a registered plan of subdivision and were not created by way of consent, the lots will merge per subsection 53 of the Planning Act. The application was previously considered by the Committee of Adjustment on September 12, 2025. At that time, planning staff recommended that the application be deferred, as it was their professional opinion that the proposal did not constitute a technical severance and did not conform with the official plans or comply with the zoning bylaw. The committee subsequently deferred the application. Since that meeting, staff have received case law examples and a professional opinion from the agent, Joshua Clark of HDR Graham Partners, indicating that Application B25-06 constitutes a technical severance within the meaning of the Provincial Planning Statement and Section I-422 of the Township of Georgian Bay Official Plan. Recall that the subject lands contain a provincially significant wetland and that a substantial portion of the property lies below the static flood elevation, resulting in potential flood risk. Prior to any development on the lands to be severed, the property owner will be required to establish frontage onto Honey Harbour Road, obtain site plan approval, and retain qualified professionals to complete an environmental impact study and a flood hazard analysis in support of the proposed development. The PPS defines development as the creation of a new lot, a change in land use, or the construction of buildings or structures requiring approval under the Planning Act. A technical severance does not constitute development, and as such, limited policies apply. The Township Official Plan states a consent may be permitted for technical or legal reasons, such as boundary adjustment, lot additions, easements, rights-of-ways, validation of titles, or other similar purposes that do not result in the creation of a new lot. As shown here, the lands to be retained are zoned residential type 1 and zoned environmental protection wetland, while the lands to be severed are zoned rural, environmental protection wetland, and environmental protection provincially significant wetland. The proposed severance meets the minimum lot area requirements of the rural zone, but does not comply with the frontage requirements, as the lands to be severed lack legal access via municipal maintained road. While the retained lands conform to the R1 zone standards, and existing development is appropriately set back from the EP zones, the severed lands cannot support development until legal frontage is obtained. As the application represents technical severance, planning staff are of the opinion the application achieves compliance with the zoning bylaw. Here are some photos of the lands to be retained. And the photo on the left was taken near the proposed rear lot line of the lands to be retained, facing the provincially significant wetland and lands to be severed. The photo on the right shows the current access to the rear yard and the lands to be severed, which is located behind the detached garage. In conclusion, it is planning staff's professional opinion that the consent application represents a technical severance, and staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Correspondence has been received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating that building permits will be required, and one letter was received from Hydro One stating they have no comments or concerns.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee with any additional comments? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that's present that wishes to address the committee on this application? Again, seeing no one, I'll close the public portion of the application consideration and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shania, I think you touched on it, but my concern is the severed land is not going to have any access to Honey Harbour Road. How does that make that of any value, or is there some method to allow them access to the Honey Harbour Road rather than going through the retained land, or is that their intention?
Through the chair, the property owner of the lands to be severed will have to apply for consent to create access to the lands legally, whether it be easement or boundary adjustments between the two properties. That will need to be done to get access.
Okay, so as long as they're fully aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. Just a question I might have for the planner. Do you feel that the information that you received from the applicant is sufficient to offset the concerns that the committee had regarding the technical severance? You don't feel it's it meets the requirements of the township?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. All right, if there are no, there is a question from Member Pretko.
Yeah, just continuing on the question about access to Honey Harbour Road. There are two road allowances. Are either of those eligible for obtaining access to Honey Harbour Road, or is that something they would have to negotiate with the township to do?
Through the chair, if there are road allowances, then I believe they would have to work with the clerk's department
To purchase.
to purchase.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I will read the resolution. And that is here. Okay. Is moved by Member Hazelton, seconded by Member Jarvis. Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B25-06 for the technical severance of the lot having no frontage and an area of 23.87 hectares and subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property subject to this decision. And two, that a draft transfer be prepared by solicitor and submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in preparation for the creation of a certificate of official describing the parcels created by consent. And three, that all fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, or planning, if any, incurred by the township with respect to this application be paid for by the respective owners. And pursuant to section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act, the certificate of consent be affixed to the deed within 2 years of the giving of notice of decision. And section 53, subsection 43 of the Planning Act requires that the transaction approved by this consent must be carried out within 2 years of the issuance of the certificate. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you. Our next consent application is B25-12 for 40608 and 40734 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject properties are located within the Wawa Tasty coastal waterfront community and are both developed with a detached dwelling and accessory buildings and structures there too. The lands are forested with steep shorelines characterized by granite rock. The property, municipally known as 40608 Georgian Bay Shore, has an area of 9.26 hectares and a frontage of approximately 425 meters, while the property known as 40734 Georgian Bay Shore has an area of 6.15 hectares and a frontage of approximately 296 meters. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever the shore road allowance, being parts 5 and 6 on reference plan 35R12158, which fronts both properties and has merged due to common ownership, and to allow each property to obtain ownership of its respective abutting shore road allowance. The provincial planning statement defines severances for legal or technical reasons as those for purposes such as easements, corrections of deeds, quit claims, and minor boundary adjustments, which do not result in the creation of a new lot. Therefore, the application to sever the shore road allowance constitutes a technical severance. The subject lands are designated waterfront area within the district's official plan and identified as having moderate to high archaeological potential, with low, moderate, and high wildfire hazard ratings, and a shoreline containing fish habitats type 1 and 2. Within the township's official plan, the lands are designated waterfront in the Wawa Tasty coastal waterfront community. Both official plans are silent on technical land severances, aside from stating that a consent may be applied for to facilitate such. Both properties are zoned shoreline residential type 5, with portions of both their shorelines being zoned fish habitat type 1. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the development rights remain same regardless of shore road allowance ownership. As the application is technical in nature and does not constitute development, planning staff are of the opinion that the consent application represents good planning and are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating she has no concerns, and one letter was received from the District of Muskoka stating they have no objection.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing no one present or on. Oh, the agent is online? Is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments?
Sorry, hello, can you hear me?
Can now, yes.
Yes, I don't know why it wasn't connected before. So yes, I'm the agent. There's nothing really I have to add. It was very well expressed by Ms. Levesque. It is just a technical severance, and we're hoping that the clients can move forward with your approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public present or online that wishes to address the committee? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And I see no hands raised online and no questions here. So with that, I will read the resolution. It is moved by member Predko and seconded by member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to consent application B25-12 for the technical severance of the shore road allowance and subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property subject to this decision. Two, that a copy of the deposited reference plan be provided to the Secretary Treasurer. Three, that a draft transfer be prepared by a solicitor and submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in preparation for the creation of the certificate of official describing the parcels created by consent. And four, that all fees and disbursements, if any, incurred by the township with respect to the applications be paid for by the respective owners. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to our minor variance applications. Our first minor variance application is A25-46 for 20 Island 2060 in Georgian Bay. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property is located on Island 140 or Big Ship Island within Georgian Bay. The property has an area of 2.83 acres and a frontage of 148.28 meters and is located within the Cognachine waterfront community. The property currently contains a detached dwelling, a sleeping cabin, a dryland boathouse, and a dock. The existing dwelling is sited at the 20-meter front yard setback mark exactly, with a gross floor area of 228.1 square meters. A minimum front yard setback of 15.09 meters and a maximum gross floor area of 264.3 square meters was previously approved under minor variance A2511 at the April 11th, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Specifically, minor variance A2511 permitted the construction of a single-story sunroom addition onto the northwest corner of the existing dwelling. The application before you today proposes to construct a second-story study addition atop the sunroom with a front yard setback of 15.63 meters and bringing the total gross floor area to 304.56 square meters. It was recently clarified that the bylaw requirement for maximum gross floor area for a dwelling on these subject lands was calculated incorrectly. Section 7.4.1C states that the maximum gross floor area shall be 25 square meters per 1,000 square meters of lot area, or 2 square meters per meter of lot frontage, whichever is more restrictive. In no case shall the dwelling exceed a gross floor area of 325 square meters. The subject property is 11,465 square meters, meaning the maximum gross floor area shall be 275 square meters in accordance with section 7.4.1 rather than 250 square meters, as stated in the public notice. This is the most restrictive option. Since the previous public hearing, clarification regarding the obtainment of building permits has been provided. The original building permit for the existing dwelling was issued in 2011 and would have been appropriately evaluated under the 1991-19 zoning bylaw. The subject property was zoned SR-2 under the 1991-19 bylaw and was subject to a maximum building height of 8 meters. Therefore, the building height is now considered to be legally non-compliant. To be clear, an expansion to a legally non-compliant building is permitted so long as the expansion does not further increase or create any issues of non-compliance with the current zoning bylaw. The property owners have an acquired right to a 2-story dwelling at a 20-meter setback or greater from the front lot line. Since the proposed addition is within the minimum front yard setback of 20 meters, a variance is required to address the addition height, as that acquired right doesn't exist at the proposed setback of 15.63 meters. If the second-story addition was 20 meters or greater from the front lot line, no variance to address height would be required. The view of the shoreline is not anticipated to be majorly intensified as a result of the construction of the addition, as seen in the north and east elevation drawings, being the 2 sides most visible from Georgian Bay. The width of the dwelling will not be increasing, and the height will be less than that of the existing legal non-complying second story. As per the orientation of the building with respect to property frontage, the visual massing of the building from the shoreline will be minimally increased, as the addition is to be constructed in an area having a visual backdrop of the dwelling's existing partial second story. The proposed addition will not represent the creation of a newly non-compliant dwelling, nor will it intensify the waterfront area in terms of built form, remaining well below the maximum lot coverage permitted and not increasing the ground floor area of the dwelling. The Cognachine policies speak to the protection of natural heritage features within the waterfront community. The conservation of overall natural landscape, tree cover, and vegetation shall be encouraged in an effort to preserve natural appearance, character, and aesthetics of the area. At this time, the foundation for the sunroom is complete, and the applicant has confirmed that no mature tree removal has taken place. However, a condition of approval was added to address the retention of the existing native vegetation, which will encompass the completion of the first-story construction, as well as the proposed second-story construction. A mature tree and vegetation plan as displayed on screen will be included in the amended minor variance agreement. As seen, the present mature tree and vegetation surrounds the north extent of the building, permitting a suitable area of expansion behind natural screening. The owners of the subject property have submitted several photos of the shoreline or view from the canoe. As depicted in the photo displayed, there will be no hazard or flooding concerns, with the proposed addition being located in closer proximity to the water. There's a significant elevation change between the current water's edge and the plateau where the proposed dwelling addition is to be located. The location of the proposed addition will be behind retained vegetation screening, while maintaining the dark-colored exterior aesthetic of the existing dwelling. Prior of reading the review of the Cognasheen waterfront community policies, any community policies for that matter, it is important to understand how these policies should be interpreted as per section 8.2.2 of the official plan. This section states that where numbers or values are specified in text, such quantities are intended as guidelines. Deviations from numbers or values, which are minor and restricted, may be permitted without an amendment to this official plan, provided that the principles and intent of the official plan are maintained. This section goes further to state that individual policies should not be read or interpreted in isolation. The intent, goals, and objectives of all applicable policies must be considered together to determine conformity. The Cognasheen built form policies within the official plan are intended to protect the visual character of the waterfront community and maintain an appropriate balance between natural and built form, as the natural heritage of the area, with its water, rock, and trees, plays a strong role in shaping the character of the waterfront community. Human presence and structures should complement and blend with the distinctive landscape, not to dominate or alter it. The construction of the addition will result in a dwelling that exceeds the maximum permitted gross floor area and expands upon an existing non-complying second story. However, the vast majority of the complete property, as well as the frontage, will be maintained in its natural state. A sediment and erosion control plan has been implemented for the protection of the natural heritage of the area, and a tree and vegetation preservation plan will be implemented for the protection of natural screening and a balance between natural and built form. This application represents a unique scenario where the visual massing of the subject legal non-complying dwelling has existed for over a decade. In the case of the partial second story dwelling, the issue of non-compliance is existing, and expanding the second story by a total of 30.36 square meters would not grossly increase the physical prominence of the building. The committee can either approve or deny the variances being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variances to the zoning bylaw and are recommending approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required and that the septic system may need to be reviewed for potential undersizing. 5 letters of support were received from Ian and Terry Wilson, Katie Fine, Carol McKnight, Scott McLaury, and Andrea Bileski, Jim Loweski, and Susan Bennett. 1 letter of objection was received from Bill Washmuth, and 1 letter of objection was received from the Cognasheen Cottagers Association.
Thank you. Is the applicant present or online, and do they wish to address the committee on this application? And I understand the agent's online, and Danielle Bilodeau, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hardly hear you, so
Oh, shoot. Okay.
There
I'll hold my little mic closer to my, how's this?
That's great.
Okay. Yes, so as mentioned, my name is Danielle Bilodeau from Justin Sherry Design Studio here on behalf of the owners. Address is 17 Point Street in Barrie, Ontario. I'll try not to repeat too much of what Andrew explained. I apologize if I do. I just want to focus on the concerns that the committee had during our December hearing and how we've revised our application to address and justify those concerns. I'll walk through the main concerns of the building height and how the 2-story has come to be allowed and the environmental concerns. So for the height of the proposed addition, we completely understand the committee's concern with the two-story cottage and its height, and we greatly take this into consideration. We knew that the cottage was constructed in 2014, but we didn't understand how it was allowed when two-story structures are not permitted in the 2014 official plan or zoning bylaw. As Andrew did mention, he looked into the building permit for the existing cottage and discovered that the building permit was issued in 2011, prior to the introduction of the current official plan and zoning bylaw. As Andrew said, this means that the existing two-story cottage was constructed legally and is now considered legal non-complying. And then we are adding to that. With the height concern still in mind, though, we did revisit the study of the study roof's design and reduce the roof pitch so that the height of the addition is less than the existing cottage, which is making the addition less prominent. I hope you were able to see from the previous design to this one that it really helped in kind of reducing the effect of the addition. So we were really happy that we could do that. We were also curious about other two-story cottages in the area, as the owners had let me know that there are some around. So we discovered that there are a few with very similar architectural characteristics of showing as partially two stories from the outside. Whether they are on the inside, I'm not sure, but from the outside, they do look like two stories, like this existing cottage. So there are a couple. I hope you were able to see the map that I made. I can also share my screen if you'd like, if I could walk through it. Whichever you would prefer.
Okay, let's share the screen so we can see.
Sure. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so yeah, that is the addition now, and then that was the addition before. So that was super helpful. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. Okay, so as shown in this map, there are just a few examples of the locations of the partial two stories similar to ours. So there is one, there are a couple I'm showing on the left side that look like they're very prominent and they don't have very much privacy. Where we're in a case where that corner where our addition is surrounded by mature trees and vegetation and providing a lot of privacy. So that was super helpful for us to look into. I spoke with the members of the Cognition Cottagers Association earlier this week to discuss their concerns. And I understand that they're very concerned that our application will set precedent. But looking into this map, I just wanted it to be known that we're not the only partially two-story cottage in the area. And we feel that we're not setting precedent as these structures already exist nearby. The location of 20 Island 2060 is also less traveled by pleasure crafts cruising the water, as it's in kind of like a less open area of the water. And the addition will have great coverage from the existing North Shoreline's mature trees. Then I'll go over to the site plan. I know Andrew did show it, but I'm just going to go back to it. I wanted to mention the environmental concerns as well that the committee had with regards to the impact on the environment and existing and mature trees and vegetation. So the cottage is located on an area of the property that is mainly exposed to bedrock. And then we have the mature trees surrounding it. The proposed addition will not affect the existing shoreline whatsoever, or its surrounding mature trees and vegetation. And as Andrew mentioned, the sunroom floor is already constructed and none of that has been altered or undisturbed. So it can maintain that way. And that's great that we know that. We would also like to mention that I spoke with the owners and they're happy to say that native vegetation is planned to be planted where possible in the shoreline area, giving further privacy where possible. Okay, I'll stop sharing that. I wanted to mention too, as Sydney mentioned, that 5 letters of support were received. So the owners did take the time to give the nearby neighbors a heads up for this application. And I'll just mention a few things that the letters of support stated, just kind of backing up our revisions. So one person had said, the proposed additions to the current dwelling are both very much in keeping with the current and intended use of the property. Having lived on the site and as a neighbor who boats by the property often, I feel that the addition would have absolutely no negative impact on the surrounding community, either visually or from a density standpoint. And then another said, it is evident that the owners and their designer have taken significant consideration in minimizing the impact of the addition on the surrounding lands, as well as the visual effects on the views from the water side. And then one more, someone said, I do not feel that the construction and change to the dwelling will have any effect on our neighborhood. It will not change our views or affect boat traffic in any way. With that, I thank you all for your time and all for your considerations that you've had. We're very happy that we had the opportunity to look deeper into our application and to revise things where we could. And I'm happy to answer any comments or questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? There is someone? Okay. Okay, so where are they on the screen? Oh, okay, very good. Okay, so okay, we have Bill Boxworth online. Do you wish to add some comments? Please go ahead. And you are muted. There we go.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Hill and members of the committee. I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to present our views. Our cottage is a couple of islands east of Ship Island on Smith Island. We submitted comments on this application as part of the December committee meeting, and we also most recently submitted comments on February 10th for the revised application. Our written comments addressed the two-story building, multiple applications, gross floor area, tree cover, and conditions of approval. And I will talk to those as well today. The two-story building, I don't know what specific rules or standards were in place when the original cottage was planned and constructed. I mean, it was constructed in 2014, and I don't know when the planning for it started, but it was obviously well before that. However, bylaws, policies, and official plans and how they've been reviewed and implemented change over time. Within the current Cognizine waterfront community policies at section F5-10-8-4 states the height shall respect the existing tree line and not exceed a maximum of 1.5 stories. Therefore, a two-story building is no longer permitted in Cognizine. The height of the addition, to me, is not the issue. The issue is that two-story cottages are not consistent with the vision proposed in the Cognizine waterfront community policies. Therefore, I think this request should be denied. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that there were multiple applications. I believe that a comprehensive application, including everything, should have been prepared. For the proponent to submit 2 sequential piecemeal applications is poor planning practice. The first application in 2005 was for a simple sunroom. We didn't have any issues with that addition. But to bring forward a second application in the same calendar year, we don't believe is acceptable. By approving the first application, the setback issue in the current application is really moot, since the township has already approved a variance of less than 20 meters from the high water mark. The approval of the first application increased the gross floor area by approximately 30 meters squared. And I realize that Andrew has sort of changed the numbers today, or Mr. Donaldson's changed the numbers, but at that point in time, we thought it was 250, so that had moved it above the 250 limit. This was a small increase and seemed reasonable. The second increase moved it from 264 to 304 square meters. So when you look at the total increase from 228 to 304 square meters for both applications, We think this is a significant increase of over 30%. The proposal is too large and not consistent with the vision of the local Cognoscene policies. Tree clearing. Vegetation removal was an issue at the December meeting, and to address these concerns, a condition of approval has been added to the current application to address tree and vegetation removal. This current condition only applies to the A25-46 application. It does not apply to the previously approved A25-11 application. The current proposal is further away from the shoreline and generally above the previously approved sunroom. As construction has already commenced on the sunroom, I expect that any necessary clearing for both applications has already been completed to facilitate construction of the sunroom. The current condition should be expanded to include all construction activities identified in both the A25-11 and A25-46 applications. In particular, the requirement to replace removed or damaged vegetation with native material. For the reasons I've discussed above, I think the current proposal is not consistent with the Cognoscene policies, and therefore I would request the variance be declined in its current form. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Marshwood. And we have another. Okay, and we have Kara Hunter showing up. And I see you're unmuted, so please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Hill, members of the committee, members of the Committee of Adjustments and Township staff. My name is Kara Hunter, and I'm a resident at Island 1810-10418. I'm speaking on behalf of our board and our volunteer planning committee as chair of the Cognoscene Cottagers Association. I'd like to touch on why the CCA is here. Under our mandate, our planning committee monitors and reviews applications for variances, severances, and zoning or official plan amendments within the Cognoscene waterfront community. Part of our advisory is to make representations to the township and this committee. We assess whether applications conform to the intent and purpose of the Cognoscene waterfront community policies in section F.5.7 and related provisions of the township official plan and zoning bylaw. We also strive to consult with applicants and staff wherever possible. Our goal is to support development that respects long-established waterfront policies that protect shoreline character, built form, and environmental values along Cognoscene Georgian Bay. With respect to application A25-46 for the Mullen property, we acknowledge and appreciate that revisions have been made since the December hearing. The roof height of the addition has been reduced from 6.23 meters to 5.89 meters. A vegetation retention plan has been added and is proposed to be registered on title. We also appreciate that an additional variance for height has now been formally identified. Despite these revisions, however, our fundamental concerns do remain. First, the proposal will still intensify built form within the required setback from the bay. The two-story expansion increases overall massing and visual prominence when viewed from the water. The policies specific to Cognoscene are clear. Dwellings are not to exceed 1.5 stories. Height should respect the tree line, and where the 20-meter setback cannot be achieved, height should be reduced, not increased. In our view, the application runs counter to these policies and principles. Second, as noted in the initial meeting, this is a second minor variance application for this property in less than a year. And when applications are brought incrementally, each is assessed in isolation, and the cumulative impact on the shoreline character can be lost. The official plan purposely limits height, massing, and gross floor area in Cognoscene to prevent gradual intensification within the waterfront setback. Third, we have concerns regarding how this dwelling is being characterized. The staff report suggests the existing two-story condition is legally non-complying. However, information indicates that the building permit was issued in 2011 and should have been reviewed under zoning bylaw 2008-10, not the earlier 1991-19 bylaw. If that is correct, the original two-story construction may not have complied with the bylaw in force at the time. We raise this not to assign any fault, but because it affects the lens through which the application is evaluated. If the original height was permitted in error, then expanding that condition within the shoreline setback risks compounding an earlier mistake. The earlier error should not become the benchmark for further intensification. Fourth, while a tree preservation plan has been proposed, the addition remains close to mature shoreline vegetation. Any loss of screening would further increase the visual impact from the bay. Registration on title is helpful, but enforcement ultimately depends on monitoring and complaints, and visual character, once altered, cannot be easily restored. Taken together, these factors lead us to conclude that relief sought is not minor. The proposal does not maintain the general intent and purpose of the township's official plan policy specific to Cognoscene, nor the SR 1I7 zoning provisions. Accordingly, the CCA's position remains that this application should be denied, and if the applicant wishes to proceed, it should come forward through the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment process, where the broader policy implications can be properly evaluated. I want to close by emphasizing that the CCA is here in good faith. We are committed to consistency, transparency, and partnership with the township staff and applicants. We want good outcomes for all, property owners, neighbors, and the broader Cognoscene community. We remain open to discussion and collaboration to find solutions that respect both the applicant's plans and long-standing waterfront policies that define this unique area. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hunter. Is there any other member of the public, either online or present, that wishes to address the committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And do we have any questions or comments from the committee? I see a hand up from Member Matthews. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would just like to reiterate what Ms. Hunter so eloquently presented to you. According to Mr. Donaldson, the building permit was issued in 2011. The Cognoscene plan, and I have a copy of it right here on my desk, and the amendment number 15 to the official plan of Georgian Bay was approved by the Council of Georgian Bay on October 16th and by the District of Muskoka on January 22nd, 2007. So those are the rules that should have been applied to when this permit came up. And, you know, we can't look back and lay blame, and we can't ask the building to be taken down, but I don't think that we can look at it as legal non-complying. It just never should have happened in the first place. And some of the wording in our plan was very specific, and Mr. Wansmith touched on it, that shall not exceed 1.5 stories. The wording there was, and I'll quote two people that were on the committee at the time. One was Neil Davis, who was a well-respected planning lawyer. The other was Mr. Greg Corbett, who we hired from Planscape. The double wording on that, they said it's like having belt and suspenders to make sure that it never happens. Well, apparently it has. So I'm asking that it doesn't continue to happen. And I also am concerned about the permit creep has been discussed about a little bit here and a little bit there. And before we know it, we're way over what is part of the plan. So I think Ms. Hunter had a good solution that this could go to official plan amendment. And they probably have a little bit more leeway at that point. But I just wanted to bring these points forward so that everybody's fully aware that this should never have happened. We can't go backwards, but I don't think that we can support it going forward either. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Matthews. And I think this raises a question, and I see we have representatives here of our various levels of planning department. I would ask basically two questions. From the information that you've heard this morning, it appears that there may have been an error made in the interpretation of whether or not it was applicable to put that building permit forward. And the recommendation that has been put forward to correct that error has been to request that the applicant apply for an official plan amendment or a zoning bylaw amendment. And I would be interested in your comments as to whether or not that would be the recommended path to follow in order to get this to deal with this application.
Yeah, through the chair, and thank you for the question. So what we heard was reference to 2008-10, the zoning bylaw amendment to the 1991 zoning bylaw. A building permit was issued, but that has been established. And from my standpoint, there's deemed compliance. We've already heard the suggestion that no one's recommending that this cottage be torn down. It's either in compliance at the original cottage or it's not. It can't be sort of in compliance. So we haven't taken action to tear it down. A permit was issued, presumably believed to be lawfully at the time. So from my standpoint, the analysis in the staff report dealing with the addition and treating the addition as an expansion or enlargement of a legal non-conforming use is appropriate in this case. From staff standpoint, the mass, the size, the height, the number of stories have been established, to my knowledge, with no negative impacts on the Cognizant community. So I think what the committee should consider when considering the variance is really the before and after. Will the proposed addition aggravate the situation to some level that is just simply no longer acceptable compared to what's already there?
I'm not sure we got the answer that I was looking for there. I'm addressing specifically the fact that during the deliberations at the December meeting and today, it appears that it's likely there was an error made in issuing the building permit that allowed that second story to be built. And if in fact that is correct, would it not be inappropriate to proceed with that as a legal non-complying addition to the building? And should we not then just take this matter to planning council and request an official plan and a zoning bylaw amendment?
Again, from staff standpoint, because a permit was issued, it's deemed to comply. It would be impossible to go back in time and say this is not complying with the zoning bylaw and take action. So the staff approach to treat it as a section 45(2) expansion enlargement of a legal non-conforming use, in my mind, is appropriate. And I don't believe anything would be gained by making the applicant go through an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. The same development, the same addition would be before a body, in that case, council. The same issues would be in consideration. So I think this is the appropriate process, and I think the committee has the information it needs to make a decision.
Very well. Are there any other member Predco, please?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just wanted to comment in light of the comments made by our Director of Planning and the presentation by our planner. I did want to comment on the fact that I think these applicants did hear the concerns raised by the committee last time, and I think they've gone back through and looked at this proposal with that in mind to try to come to a spot where they were comfortable with completing an increase of size that they thought was within a minor variance to what had been approved. I really do want to note that from the pictures we've seen in the floor plans and the schematics, the height is now below the existing roof line, and from a visual impact perspective, I think that has minimized it. That it with the screening that is visible in the photos that have been provided, I don't think there's an increased massing that we would see from the lake, and I think that is characterized by the comments of the neighbors that have taken the time to make comment. I do appreciate that there is still the concern of 1.5 versus 2 stories, and we've now gotten a roof line that's lower, as low as 1.5 stories, and I don't know if the distinction between 1.5 stories and a full story or 2 stories is that the interior has sloped ceilings. If that's really pertinent to the situation here, if the roof line is already below and in the zone for 1.5 stories, if you do or don't have sloped roofs and interiorly to call it 1.5 stories, I'm not sure what we're. I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs at this point in terms of what is 1.5 stories versus 2 stories. So in my mind, I think that we really have seen an application that has listened to the committee from December and has tried to address these issues as best they can and still continue with an application that suits their needs. I appreciate they've got 2 in 1 year, and I think that is obviously a concern for everybody, that you're increasing, getting approval once and going for approval that would have been harder to obtain in the first instance. But I understand people start to do work and then they realize that maybe there's something else that they could have done to prevent some other future expansion. And in my mind, I think they are now working within the footprint of the first minor variance, and they've made accommodations to try to minimize the impact and preserve the screening, the natural vegetation, and decrease the height and the size of what they're asking for. So those are my thoughts on this file. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Predko, and I think that was very insightful summary of where we're at. And one of the questions that Member Predko addressed there was the difference between 1.5 stories and 2. And how is that measurement, or how is that comparison done? Is it the interior wall height, or what do we have?
Through the chair, I can get the exact definition here. So 1.5 stories means that the portion of the building is situated above the first story is wholly or in part within the roof. So as Member Predko mentioned, it would be the walls would be kind of sloping into the ceiling as to be forming part of the roof. In our zoning bylaw definitions, it reads 1.5 stories or 7 meters, whichever is the lesser. So that being said, if it was 1.5 story constituting part of the story being within the roof, it would be permitted to be a maximum of 7 meters. Under this proposal, we're at 5.98 now. However, it constitutes 2 stories, and this is where this argument is forming.
And when you get that 7 meters, and if you're measuring a peak roof, at what point do you measure? Like, I know for the outside you do the midpoint, but
that's correct. It would be the same, the midpoint between the peak and the eaves, so it would be overall greater than 7 meters to the peak.
So this would be much less than that, obviously. Yeah. Okay. Any other further questions or comments? Member Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Hill, through you. I too echo some of the comments here from Member Predko. When we're calculating square footage or square meters, because I'm old school, but square footage, usually your calculation of 1.5 stories also reduces your footprint, because as like 1.5 stories is 1.5 of your total square footage, right? So I'm not sure if this was measured based on the foundation. We might actually be less square footage now that you're coming into your roof lines, just as a point of discussion when you're calculating square footage in my industry. But I hear comments of permit creep. Any permit application moving forward for anything beyond what's here is going to have to come before us to be able to police it if we had further expansion. I believe that this family has exercised and shown the respect for the tree cover, and they've chosen over the decade that they've lived there to not dismantle that tree coverage that's there. So sometimes when we make comments that somebody might do something that they haven't done in the last decade, I think maybe isn't fair to the applicant. I think they've come back, as said, listened to the concerns we've had. I believe they've addressed them. And I truly believe this is something that would be considered minor in nature. I respect the Cognizine community. And I don't think this will negatively impact them once this is completed. Appropriate siding that matches what's currently there, it is going to be a muted development in Cognizine. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any further questions or comments? Member Rivet?
Yes, thank you. To you, Mr. Chair. Could I just have clarification from either Andrew or Derek? You mentioned the application is coming forward under 45.2, but the report talks about the 4 tests. They discuss the 4 tests under 45.1. So which section is this being presented under? Because to me, it looks like we're talking about all 4 tests as opposed to the 2 tests.
Through the chair. So there are elements of the application that are evaluated under each section. I'll let Andrew explain that, but the area, the proposed, the addition, the area that's in the front yard, that's in the non-compliant front yard, that's the part that's specifically under 45.2.
Sorry, to expand upon that further, if the case was that the expansion was occurring behind the 20-meter setback and it was still the issue of the height, it would be under 45.2. But in this case, because it's within the front yard, it's creating a new issue of non-compliance. So it's evaluated under 45.1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so from my, what I remember when I went to Committee of Adjustment School, we were told that applications that come forward under 45.1 must pass all 4 tests. If it doesn't pass one of the tests, it must fail, period. That's what we were taught. So the alternative to that is it an OP amendment? Is it a zoning bylaw amendment? I understand that there was an error. This permit shouldn't have been issued, or when it was issued, they didn't take into consideration the Cognizine plans, which were in effect at the time. So that means that a mistake was made by the township. So how do they correct that? Well, at law, they have 2 alternatives. They can either say, we made a mistake, tear the building down, sorry, or they accept it and now we have to deal with the consequence to that. So expanding an illegal use that was legally authorized is really not adding to the benefit of the surrounding community. I know the applicant is coming forward, and if we were just addressing it under 45.2, it's up to the committee to weigh the expansion as it affects all community members as opposed to the applicant. So we have to weigh what the applicant wants against the community. I think that the expansion is it is going to be great because it's expanding that second story that shouldn't have been there in the first place that they were allowed to build. I don't think it's minor. For me, because it's not minor, it doesn't pass that one test. So I don't think that I am comfortable approving the application unless it comes forward as a zoning bylaw amendment or at least an official plan amendment to recognize that the permit was issued erroneously, should never have been issued. It's nobody's fault. It is what it is. Of course, we'd never ask them to tear it down, but I don't think you can expand an illegal use. I don't believe it passes the 4 test under 45.1. So I can't support this as it is. I really wish it would have come back to us at a time when we could actually go and see the property. That would have been one thing. We could have a better opportunity to see it. But I just have to rely on the Cognizine plan. The other question I have is page 2 of the report indicates that the expansion will not require significant vegetation removal. So does that mean there is going to be some vegetation removal?
That was more of addressing the wording in our policy that we have for that. The applicant has confirmed that no vegetation removal has taken place in the construction of the first story addition. And of course, with the second story addition being atop that first story, no vegetation removal would be required for that either.
From my perspective, I would rather see this come back with a zoning bylaw amendment to recognize the erroneous permit that was issued in the first place, to correct it so it doesn't continue, or an official plan amendment. But I don't believe this application coming now is minor in nature. When we look at the size, the expansion of the square footage and the encroachment into the front yard setback. So I have a hard time supporting this as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Rivet. I now recognize Member Hazelton.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo what Member Rivet has just said. And I'd also like to highlight the fact that when we have neighborhood plans in our township, and where we have a community who are as active, certainly as the Cognoscene community, who have taken the time to weigh in on the details of this, and their conclusion is that this has come through the wrong path, and in fact, it should go as an OP and a zoning bylaw amendment. I think we need to be respectful of that kind of input. They're not trying to make enemies in their neighborhood. They're trying to defend the plan that they spent an enormous amount of time building. And I would say that they probably have, well, they certainly have more passion in defending their plan than anybody else. And so I think we need to respect that and see if we can look at this coming a different path. And if it passes in that path, that's fine. I know one of their biggest concerns is precedent. We keep hearing that no, things aren't setting precedent, but we also have examples where precedents have been set by things like this. And so I can't support this.
Okay, thank you, Member Hazelton. And I see a hand raised by Member Matthews. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would like to echo Ms. Rivet and Mr. Hazelton's comments. The other, and just at the end, Mr. Hazelton touched on precedent, and I would just like to go back to Ms. Belladot's comment about other cottages in the area. My recollection is those cottages were built before our plan, and that was one of the reasons, one of the driving forces to develop a plan so that we did not end up with monster 2-story cottages. So I think it's unfair to use them as citing as precedent. I don't think anybody here really wants to shut this down, but I can't support it the way it is, and I would fully support an official plan amendment or a zoning bylaw change. So I'll leave it to you people to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Matthews. Are there any further questions or comments before I read the resolution? And I would just say that the resolution calls for approval of the application. So please be aware of that when you cast your vote at the end. It is moved by Member Schmidt, seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-46 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 20 Island 2060 Georgian Bay to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling as described below. 1, a decrease in minimum front yard setback from 15.63 meters where 15.09 meters currently exists and where section 7.3 table 7.2 permits a minimum front yard setback of 20 meters. And 2, a building height of 2 stories where 2 stories currently exist and whereas section 7.3 table 7.2 permits a maximum building height of 1.5 stories. And 3, an increase in maximum gross floor area of a dwelling in the Cognoscene coastal waterfront community to 304.56 square meters, where 264.3 square meters currently exist. And whereas section 7.4.1 permits a maximum gross floor area of 275 square meters. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that's subject to this decision. And two, that the owner at their cost shall amend the existing minor variance agreement with the township regarding the registered upon the subject lands to implement the recommendations of the amended erosion and sediment control plan and construction mitigation plan prepared by Sumac Environmental Consulting. Three, that all existing shoreline area vegetation be retained and any vegetation removed or damaged during the construction of the development shall be replaced with native vegetation to the satisfaction of the township. And four, that the proposed addition be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor of approval of this application, please signify by raising their hand. I see 2 hands raised. And I would then ask all those that are in favor of denial of the application, please raise your hand. No? All right, just checking. Good for you. So with that, the application.
No, because he didn't.
The application is defeated. Yes.
Sorry,
I hear a voice in the background.
Oh, I just wanted to thank everybody for their time, and I appreciate the healthy debate. I appreciate the concerns, and I just wanted to thank everyone.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. Before we proceed, I would ask those that are have voted to deny the application to provide our Secretary Treasurer with a reason that she might record that. So, Member Ribbon, maybe a short version of your presentation would help for our Secretary Treasurer. Okay. Okay. It's okay. Got it. All right.
It needs to be on the record.
Thank you. We got that. Member Hazelton, do you have a comment that you could add as a reason for defeating?
I would say it doesn't, in my view, seem minor in nature as a committee of adjustment path. It is significant and requires an OP and zoning bylaw consideration.
Okay. And Member Matthews, did you have a reason you could provide us?
I would echo Mr. Hazelton that it doesn't meet the official plan amendment or official plan and is not minor in nature.
Very good. And who else do we need? All right. My comments were the same in that it appears that because of what's taken place in the past, we need to have an OPA or zoning bylaw amendment in order to address that. And of course that it is not minor. in that it does not comply with, the zoning bylaw that we had for that
Mr. Chair,
cottaging community.
quick question, just for clarification. The permit that we approved, that they can still go ahead with that, right? So they don't have to come back if they decide not to go with the expansion. That's what thank you. That was my clarification.
Okay. I'm sorry, what was your, I didn't hear what you said. Certainly. Okay, we will take a brief break. I see it's 11:14. We will reconvene at 11:20.
Sorry, I meant like these before.
Thank you. I'd now like to reopen the meeting. And our secretary treasurer has taken the time during the break to prepare a resolution, just confirming the reason for defeat of the previous application. So would you please go ahead and read that?
Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment denies minor variance application A25-46 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for the lands known municipally as 20 Island 2060 Georgian Bay to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling for the following reasons. 1, the application should be considered through a zoning bylaw amendment or official plan amendment rather than a minor variance. 2, the application is not minor as it does not conform to the zoning bylaw and official plan. 3, the original building permit was issued in error referencing incorrect zoning bylaw sections. 4, the proposal does not conform to the Cognoscine waterfront community plan. We need a mover and a seconder.
It's moved by member Hazelton and seconded by member Rivet. All those in. This is a resolution to make a record of the reasons for defeating the application. Yeah, it's just in case there's any comeback, then we had some solid reasons rather than relying on memory as to who. Yeah, no, it's a good
It's a
thing.
new process. Your mic's not on, Hazelton.
We've already turned it down. Now you're saying we have another resolution to craft the.
Let's be really clear. We defeated the application,
Yes.
and this are the reasons for that defeat. So if we approved it, there's no, we just.
That's fine.
The planning department provided all reasons for that, but we are not agreeing with what the recommendation was in the application, and here are the reasons why. Okay. Thank you. So all in favor of the resolution that outlined the reasons for defeating the application? Please. Yeah.
Through the chair. Yes, so to member of it, it's a separate resolution. So we have the resolution that defeated the application, and this is just a resolution outlining the reasons for the defeat.
Yeah, making it a part of the record. So all of those in favor of the resolution identifying the reasons for defeat, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. And I see the hand of Mr. Member Matthews online. So the resolution is approved. And we are now moving on to our next application, which is minor variance application A25-51 for 13730 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject property has an area of approximately 2,538 square meters and a frontage of 60 meters on Georgian Bay, north of Deer Island. The lands are designated waterfront, located within the Honey Harbour coastal waterfront community and are zoned shoreline residential type 1. There are no significant natural heritage features such as type 1 fish habitat on or abutting the subject lands. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the expansion of the legal non-complying detached dwelling and the attached deck. The applicant is seeking an expansion of 23.5 square meters to the deck, which has a legal non-complying front yard setback, whereas the zoning bylaw permits the expansion of a legal non-complying structure, provided the area is not increased in a required yard or setback. The applicant is also proposing an expansion to the legally existing shoreline dwelling, which reduces the front yard by 1 meter, whereas the zoning bylaw permits expansion, provided it does not encroach further into the existing front yard. The proposed expansions will result in a maximum lot coverage of 11%, or 279.2 square meters, whereas a lot coverage of 9.25% or 235 square meters exists, and the shoreline residential type 1 zone permits a maximum lot coverage of 7% or 177.66 square meters. For greater clarity, shown here is the existing dwelling and deck layout versus the proposed layout. You can see the deck is being expanded into the side yard, and there are 2 additions to the dwelling which square off the west side. As staff were unable to conduct a site visit, the applicant provided site photos which I understand were taken in 2025. Records indicate the dwelling was constructed in 1945, with an addition being constructed in 1976. The dwelling was constructed with an attached deck. The boathouse was constructed on the property in 1986, and the property owner constructed the shed in 2022, being unaware of the pre-existing issue of noncompliance with lot coverage. To confirm, the proposed variance pertaining to lot coverage captures the shed as pictured in the rear yard. As the committee is aware, the tests for an application to expand an issue of legal noncompliance are whether the application is desirable for appropriate development of the subject property and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. Note that no mature trees are located within the expansion areas, and the front addition is located on the area currently occupied by the deck. The extension of the front wall results in a reduced front yard setback of 1 meter due to the curvature of the front lot line. The applicant is maintaining the existing side yards, more importantly on the east side of the property where the dwelling is situated closer to the lot line. The height of the dwelling will remain 1 story and the width will remain 17.55 meters. The proposed dwelling expansion complies with the permitted expansion to gross floor area, width, and height outlined in Section 411E of the zoning bylaw. And planning staff have conducted an analysis of the applicable tests in their report and are recommending approval. For the committee to deny the variances, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
We received 1 letter from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that permits will be required and that the septic system will need to be reviewed. 9 letters of support were received from Ava and Ken Barnett, David and Darcy Campbell, Frank Newell, Heather and Lars Hampkins, John and Julie Underhill, Mike and Trudy Duty, Morgan Williams, Carol Sue West, Stuart and Peggy Brown, Susan and George Burford, and 1 letter was received from Thomas Bain, Great Lakes Clean Water, stating he is not opposed, and 1 letter was received from Bob Bradegam, stating he has no objections or concerns.
Thank you. Is the applicant present or online, and do they wish to address the committee on this application? We're bringing someone forward. Where are we? Pardon the delay. We're just waiting for our technical staff to bring the person online. Okay. At this point then would ask you if there's any I'm sorry, where do you see him? Steve Simon? Okay, we have Steve Simons online. Do you wish to add some comments to what our planning department have provided so far? Are you there, Mr. Simons? Maybe he's having some technical difficulties. Okay, I would then ask if there are any members of the public. Oh, I see Steve with his hand up. Maybe you don't have your mic and camera turned on, but we can't hear you, Steve. Would you try again? Okay, you could check oh, there we go. See a picture. We can see you, Steve. We can't hear you. Ah. Here we go. We're connecting to audio. And the audio is muted, so try unmuting, Steve. All right.
Oh, boy. That was too much work. I really have nothing much to add. Just thank you very much for considering the application. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Well, great. You still have your hand up too.
Oh,
here, let's change that.
Here, lower hand.
There we go.
Great.
There.
And well, thank you for that. Remember, now you have to turn off your mic, Steve.
Oh, boy.
Your technical advisor might help you.
Yeah, I know. She's right here.
Look at the bottom left of your screen and you'll see a mute and unmute. Okay. While you're figuring that out, I would ask if there's any member of the public that is present or online that wishes to address the committee on this application. And seeing no one online or present, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or concerns. And we'll begin with Member Predko.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I just want a clarification from our planner as to the dates of the photos, the aerial photos and the front photo that was taken, just because I'm curious about the age of the vegetation where the deck is going to go and the reconfiguration of the dock. I know the dock isn't part of the minor variance today, but I just want to make sure that everything else is in compliance, that we know.
Through the chair, my understanding is the photos were taken by the applicant in 2025.
In 2025? Okay,
yes.
Thank you. And then the dock has been expanded, and that is, as far as you are aware, that's all legal conforming and it's not part of the concerns for this minor variance?
Through the chair, I believe the dock is compliance with the compliance with the zoning bylaw.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Just to follow up, we're talking about the vegetation removal, the bushes that are where the deck is going to go. They're not significant, not considered significant mature trees that would be concerned. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee? And I see no hands up online. With that, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A25-51. Number one, an expansion of 23.50 square meters to the deck, having a legal non-complying front yard setback, whereas section 4.11 permits the expansion of a legal non-complying structure provided the area is not increased in a required yard. And two, an expansion to the legally existing shoreline dwelling, which reduces the front yard by 1 meter, whereas section 4.11 permits expansion provided it does not encroach further into the existing front yard. And three, a maximum lot coverage of 11%, whereas a lot coverage of 9.25% exists, and section 4.11E and table and 6.3 table 6.2 permit a maximum lot coverage of 7% and subject to the following conditions. One, that an Ontario land surveyor professional engineer or certified engineering technologist, verify by pitting the foundation wall and verifying in writing and by way of survey, real estate report prior to the pouring of the footings, and if no footing, the foundation, that the detached dwelling is no closer than 5.7 meters from the front lot line per the site plan included with minor variance application A25-51. And 2, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 3, that the proposed development is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 4, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application A25-52 for 44 Forest Lane. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property has a frontage of 60.8 meters onto 6 Mile Lake and can be accessed via Forest Lane. The property has an area of 1.18 acres and is currently developed with a detached dwelling, a detached garage, a boat port, a dryland boathouse, and a dock. The remainder of the property is for the majority maintained in its natural state, having dense vegetation located within the rear and interior side yards. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate an expansion of an existing sunroom. The specifics of the minor variance application are displayed on screen as follows. A dwelling width of 19.4 meters, where a dwelling width of 17.3 meters currently exists, and whereas section 6.4.2A permits a maximum dwelling width of 15.2 meters. Standards on maximum size of dwelling in the 6 Mile Lake community may vary dependent on the size of the lot on which it is located. The proposed lot is suitably sized with a complete proposed development having a lot coverage of 7.73%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 8% is permitted. Barring the proposed width, the dwelling will be otherwise compliant with the dwelling size provisions for the 6 Mile Lake residential zone. The existing dwelling, which includes a sunroom, has a width of 17.3 meters. The proposal would see the width increasing by only 2.1 meters through the expansion of the existing sunroom within an opened and landscaped area of the property. In terms of view from the water, the visual change will be negligible. The interior side yards of the subject lands are maintained in their natural state, being densely vegetated. The low-lying vegetation and mature tree cover helps to shield the expansion from view of the neighboring shoreline residential properties. Pockets of mature tree cover amongst the natural exposed rock within the front yard will assist to screen the width expansion from lake users. The purpose and intent of provisions regarding dwelling size within the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community is to limit the built form to preserve the natural heritage and visual integrity of the shoreline area, overall protecting the visual character of the waterfront community. The location of the proposed detached dwelling is 21.13 meters from the current watermark and is appropriately set back from adjacent residential properties. The committee can either approve or deny the variance being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the proposed variance and are recommending approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? And has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required and that the septic system will need to be reviewed. One letter was received from the Ministry of Transportation, indicating they have no comments.
Thank you. I see we have the agent for the applicant present. Please identify yourself to the committee.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria Hoffman from Flow Drawings. Our location is 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. I am the agent and the property owner is online as well if you have any questions. This project was pretty straightforward. They have an existing sunroom, which is more of an enclosed, like window walled space. And they would like to create more of a indoor-outdoor Muskoka room space. We're asking for, I think it's 6.5 feet wider is the 2.1 meter conversion from what it is now. And we're also dropping the floor by 32 inches because one of our main design goals for this project was to kind of make it feel like more of an outdoor space and pulling the deck off of in front of the existing sunroom. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present or online that wishes to address the committee? Okay, and we have the applicant online. Is there anything that you wish to add to what the planner or the agent had to say?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you for considering our application.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one from the public, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring the application before the committee for any questions and concerns, and we'll begin with Member Franco.
Thank you. Well, I'm taking Councillor Jarvis's place today because he's not able to answer questions off the bat. My only question is with regards to the open walkway that's beside, is that going to be a hardscaped walkway? It's not a deck, and I'm just wondering if that's adding to the increased width of the property or the dwelling, or if it's just a feature for walking around that's really on the ground and not a deck.
The intent is for it to be a wood deck.
Okay.
But my understanding is it doesn't add to the dwelling width because it's not part of the structure. Like,
okay, so that doesn't count as part of the overall
Through the chair, that's correct. Building width is measured wall to wall, not deck to deck.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
I can add to that too. It's just, there's a little bit of a slope that's going to start coming down there. So they just want to kind of be able to get around the side.
Yeah, no, I could tell that from the picture, so I was curious. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Hazelton. Be it resolved, the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-52 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 46 Forest Lane to facilitate the construction of a sunroom addition as described below. One, a dwelling width of 19.4 meters where dwelling width of 17.3 meters currently exists, and whereas section 6.4.2 permits a maximum dwelling width of 15.2 meters. The above is subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that's subject to this decision. Two, that the proposed addition is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions set out in the application sketches attached to and approved by the committee. And three, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years of the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. The application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application number A25-53 for 385 Archies Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject property comprises 4,891 square meters with approximately 44 meters of frontage on the northern point of 6 Mile Lake. The lands are designated waterfront area located within the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community and in Stratum 2 deer wintering area. The shoreline contains type 1 and type 2 fish habitats. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the reconstruction and expansion of a sleeping cabin having a legal non-complying side yard setback. The zoning bylaw permits the reconstruction and expansion, provided the expansion does not occur in a required yard, such as the minimum required side yard of 5 meters. However, the applicant proposes to expand the sleeping cabin at the legally existing 2-meter side yard. The applicant proposes to increase the height of the sleeping cabin by 1.39 meters, resulting in a total height of 4.39 meters, and proposes to expand the floor area by 41.99 square meters, for a total floor area of 53.51 square meters. The proposed sleeping cabin includes a 1.2 meter eave projection on 2 walls, the front and the east side, while the zoning bylaw permits a 1.2 meter projection on only 1 wall and limits all other walls to a maximum projection of 0.6 meters. Pictured on the right is the front view of the existing sleeping cabin, and the photo on the left is a view of the sleeping cabin taken from the shoreline. The tests for an application for permission to expand a legal non-complying building are whether the application is desirable for appropriate development of the subject property, and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. The 2 variances regarding height and floor area are subject to these tests. Note that the firewood shelter abutting the sleeping cabin does not comply with the zoning bylaw, specifically the minimum required 5-meter side yard setback and the required separation from other buildings and structures. Also, the new sleeping cabin will result in the second firewood shelter, pictured here, no longer maintaining a 5-meter setback from all other buildings and structures. Staff have communicated these requirements to the applicant and have included a condition to ensure that both structures are located in a manner that achieves compliance with the zoning bylaw. The proposed expansion supports the appropriate development of the property and is not expected to result in any undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties or the waterfront community for the following reasons. The sleeping cabin remains 1 story at 4.39 meters, which is within the maximum permitted height of 4.5 meters. The proposed floor area of 53.51 square meters complies with the township's maximum permitted, being 56 square meters. The majority of the sleeping cabin is located beyond the minimum required 5-meter side yard setback for the 6 Mile Lake residential zone. As shown in the site photos, trees in the front yard and along the nearest side lot line on both properties will provide effective screening of the sleeping cabin. The cabin is located at an increased setback from the front lot line, being 33.6 meters, where only 20 meters is required. The proposed location of the sleeping cabin is clear of mature trees. And on to the eve projections. So as the proposed eve projections represent a new issue of noncompliance, the variance is subject to evaluation under 45-1, which requires consideration of whether the minor variance is minor, desirable for the appropriate development or use of land, building, or structure, and whether the general intent and purpose of the bylaw and official plan are maintained. The intent of limiting eve projections on sleeping cabins is to ensure these structures remain modest in scale and do not appear oversized or house-like. Larger eaves increase the perceived width and massing of a building. Therefore, restricting all but 1 wall to a 0.6 meter projection helps maintain the compact accessory nature of the sleeping cabin. This regulation also prevents the creation of wraparound overhangs that could function as covered outdoor areas, which exceeds the intended scope of an accessory structure. Allowing a single larger projection provides functional weather protection without enabling the building to visually or physically encroach into multiple yards. The applicant proposes a 1.2 meter eve projection on the front wall and the eastern side wall to cover the walkway and deck leading to the cabin's entrance. All remaining eaves have a projection of 0.45 meters. Importantly, the eve projection on the west side, where the reduced legally existing 2-meter side yard applies, is less than the maximum permitted. The eastern wall, where the increased projection is requested, is centrally located on the lot and will have minimal visual impact on the shoreline, given the increased front yard setback. The district's plan states that new development, excluding shoreline or minor accessory structures, should generally maintain a minimum setback of 20 meters from fish habitat to support their protection. The sleeping cabin is located approximately 45 meters from the bay containing type 1 fish habitat. The district's plan also contains policies related to wildfire hazards. The existing and proposed sleeping cabin appear to be located within an area identified as high risk. The high-risk area is relatively small and borders lands with either no rating, a low rating, or a moderate rating, as illustrated in staff's report. To confirm, all development on the property is situated outside of the densely forested area that carries an extreme rating. Given the accessory nature of the structure and its occasional use, staff did not require a wildland fire assessment for the proposed development. The goal of the 6 Mile Lake Inland Waterfront Community is to provide land use planning policies that protect the natural heritage and aesthetic integrity of 6 Mile Lake while accommodating a limited amount of new development. The waterfront community recognizes that the visual impact of development from the water is an important parameter in maintaining the character of the lake. The required front yard setback is 20 meters, and the proposed sleeping cabin is set back 33.6 meters. As shown in the site photos, the proposed cabin, located behind the existing, will be screened by mature trees throughout the front yard, as well as by a forested area in the side yard and the abutting road allowance. For the committee to deny the variances pertaining to the gross floor area and height, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The committee can approve or deny the variance for the eve projection. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required and that the septic system will need to be reviewed.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee on this application?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bill Dahms. I'm appearing as the agent for my wife, Denise, the registered owner. I've reviewed the report that Shania Wanfor has prepared, and I'd like to thank her for that. It's very thorough. I know she put a lot of work into it. We've taken a look at the conditions. We're fine with those conditions, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And seeing none, I will read the resolution.
I have one question.
I'm sorry, Member Rivet, you had a question or comment?
Thank you. There's an indication here that there's a condition that the applicant will have to provide replanting of ensure the trees that will be required to be removed are replaced. An additional native vegetation is incorporated. There's no shoreline development going on here. Is that, am I understanding that?
Through the chair, I believe you're looking at the report for the next application.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I knew that.
Sorry, thank you. Good.
Well, that's
I
good.
did a question.
We'll get back to you on that. Okay, thank you. Where there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the resolution. It is moved by Member Fredko and seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved, the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment hereby approves following variances requested under minor variance application A25-53. 1, an increase to the floor area of a legal non-complying sleeping cabin by 41.99 square meters, resulting in a total floor area of 53.51 square meters in the required side yard, whereas section 411 permits an increase in floor area provided it is not in the required yard. 2, an increase to the building height of the legal non-complying sleeping cabin by 1.39 meters for a total of 4.39 meters, whereas section 411 permits an increase in height providing it is not in a required front yard. And 3, a maximum eve projection of 1.2 meters on 2 walls, whereas section 4.1.14 permits the maximum eve projection of 1.2 meters on 1 wall. And subject to the following conditions. 1, that the 2 firewood shelters are relocated to comply with the minimum required 5-meter side yard and minimum required 5-meter separation from other buildings and structures in accordance with zoning bylaw 2014-75. And two, that the owner provide a property tax certificate of correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And three, the proposed development is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application, the sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And four, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Our next application is minor variance application A26-02 for 150 Sanctuary Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property known as 150 Sanctuary Road is comprised of 0.47 hectares with a frontage on 6 Mile Lake of 66.2 meters. The property has a fairly substantial slope to the lake and has been kept in its natural state. The parcel has mature tree cover with more of a landscaped area / gravel driveway on the roadside of the dwelling. At the present time, there's a single detached dwelling, a sleeping cabin, detached garage, 2 sheds, a firewood shelter, and a privy. The intent of the proposed development is to remove one of the sheds and privy in order to construct a new single detached dwelling. In December 2025, the owners applied for an application for a pre-consultation, which was issued by the township on January the 5th, 2026. It was determined during that process that the existing dwelling can be recognized as legal non-complying, as it was constructed in 1955. The pre-consultation report recommended the required planning application that would be appropriate to achieve what the owner was intending to do, which was a minor variance. In order to achieve the desired development, a variance is required to address the increase in gross floor area and width of the new dwelling as per section 411E of the zoning bylaw, 2014-75, and an increase in lot coverage as per section 6 of the zoning bylaw, which is under section 6 and table 6.2. The purpose and effect of the application before the committee is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a new detached dwelling with an attached deck. The existing 112.2 square meter dwelling and attached deck is to be demolished, and the new dwelling proposed will be 234.7 square meters, which is substantially larger. As section 4.11E of the zoning bylaw provides the provisions for the enlargement of a legal non-complying dwelling, the increase in gross floor area and the width must be addressed through a minor variance under section 45(2) of the Planning Act. The increase in the gross floor area will also increase the lot coverage permitted in the 6 Mile Lake residential zone, which must be addressed through a minor variance under section 45(1) of the zoning bylaw. Sorry, of the Planning Act, not the zoning bylaw. Apologize for that. The property is within the 6 Mile Lake waterfront community boundary. The character of the 6 Mile Lake waterfront community is of a residential community composed of distinct neighborhoods focused on the various basins of the lake. It consists of many island and mainland uses with a variety of access needs. This character shall be maintained and enhanced through careful land use planning. Legally existing uses, existing marinas, public accesses, residential uses and launching areas, and large areas of crown land are permitted, with limited new single detached residential uses, which are permitted as per the policies of the official plan. The existing land use, as well as the proposed enlargement of the existing dwelling, would be recognized as a permitted use within the waterfront community. The powers of a committee of adjustment are set out in subsections 45(1) and 45(2) of the Planning Act, which are to grant a minor variance from the provisions of a bylaw, permit the enlargement or extension of a legal non-conforming use, or permit the use of any land, building, or structure which, in the opinion of the committee, conforms with the uses in the bylaw. The variance requested for an increase in lot coverage will be under section 45(1), and the 2 additional requests will be heard under section 45(2) to enlarge the gross floor area and width of a legal non-complying dwelling. Section F.3.2.1.3 of the Georgian Bay Official Plan states that tree cover and vegetation shall be retained and or required wherever possible to prevent erosion, siltation, and possible nutrient migration. It has been confirmed by the owner that there will be approximately 12 to 16 trees that will need to be removed to accommodate the new dwelling. The owners and agent have provided a sketch showing in red, which is up on the screen, the trees that will definitely need to be removed, and in green, the trees that may need to be removed. If the dwelling were to be pushed back farther on the lot, even further than the proposed, more trees would need to be removed as the property is more densely vegetated further into the lot. Staff are recommending a condition to provide a landscaping plan that will be incorporated into a site plan agreement to replace and restore areas on the property that are subject to the tree removal for construction. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed minor variance, both the section 45.1 and 45.2 variances, and we are supportive of it. And with the recommended conditions, we are recommending that the Committee of Adjustment approves the applications as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, indicating that building permits will be required and that the septic system will need to be reviewed. 5 letters of support were received from Josh and Veronica Mitchell, Ken Plu, Mark Lavelle, Reiner Beinhaus, and Steve Bennett.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee? Good afternoon, and who do we have the pleasure?
Afternoon already. My name is Victoria Hoffman, 3 Violet Drive, Port Severn. This project, the property owner is beside me and she'll add something afterwards, but this is their full-time residence. It's a older cottage. I have noted that it was built in 1949, and even as recent as last night, they are dealing with the lack of winterization and just kind of the old cottage being a full-time home in these winters and these conditions. The existing cottage is around 1,200 square feet. The 40% increase would have brings us up to 1,690, and we're asking for 1,988, which includes the Muskoka room and the basement. The basement plan, we don't know what we're going to get, so we've kind of mapped out a larger area. We might end up with a little bit less, but we just want to make sure that we're covered. If for whatever reason, say that instead of the basement being like 538 square feet, if it's a little bit less than 300, we'd actually be within the allowance. We just don't know what we're going to get, and we don't want to come here twice. We're within the 6 miles of lake zone standard for this property size is 25-27, so we're well under that. The existing width, the current cottage is 19.8 meters wide. We want to go about 1 meter wider. We comply with the 30% expansion. We just don't comply with the 25% frontage. That's the 6 Mile Lake standard. It's a bit of a unique design because one of the property owners, one of our design goals was to create an exterior, like an outside backyard space, just as much as a front yard space, because they have really high winds that they wanted to address. Being year-round residents, they're very aware of this. So that's kind of where the design kind of came from, the shape of it. And then in terms of the lot coverage, we are taking down a few accessory structures, but we just couldn't get it down to that 8%. We're about 388 square feet over. Beside me is Sarah McKinney, and she can add as well.
Thank you. Was there something you wish to add at this point?
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you to
your
the
name again. For the record.
Sarah McKinney.
Sarah McKinney. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to thank the committee for their time and attention here. This property has been in my family since 1964, so I'm well aware of the natural heritage of the property. And in working with the design, it is something that was very forefront in our mind when we went through the process for designing the new structure. We will not be taking any trees down in the front yard. And it's actually we look at it as beneficial of moving the structure back. The front corner of the current structure is 3.9. It's nice to be able to move it back. And in moving it back, it means that we don't have to remove trees from where the existing structure is. That gives us the front yard, and looking to replace some of that vegetation. We're fine with that as well.
Okay, thank you. And is there any member of the public that is present or online that wishes to address this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public session and bring the application before the committee for any questions or concern. And Member Predko.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jarvis will
Mr.
appreciate
Jarvis
your-
today.
Yeah.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Quick question with regards, so I just want to say that I think this is a net improvement on the property, especially cleaning up the privy and other buildings. And obviously, if you're living here full time, the building standards have improved greatly. You should probably notice an improvement. But what I wanted to just discuss quickly was the vegetation. I think it's great you're moving it back from the waterfront. Is there any, and I'm noting that it looks like it's a particularly rocky piece of land. And I'm just wondering, has any evaluation gone into how easy it will be to revegetate some of the areas and replant? And are you planning to fill in front of between the cottage and the water in terms of improving the screening or increasing the screening, or is that going to be a yard space?
The current shoreline is very heavily vegetated right now. You cannot see the current structure from the water, even though it's so close. The intent would be to build that out a little bit, but it is very dense right now, and adding a lot, replacing all of the trees and vegetation from behind the structure to the front of the structure might actually be difficult, considering how densely it is vegetated. But our privacy is important, and so we will be doing everything that we can to mitigate.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
Member Rivet.
Yes, thank you. Could someone just confirm on the design? I'm looking at, it says 2 existing bunkies, but are they on the same, are they combined? It says
There's only one
existing
sleeping
bunkie to
cabin.
remain, existing bunkie to remain, existing garage to remain, existing shed to be removed, and existing privy to be removed.
Oh, that's, so one is the existing bunkie deck to remain. So the top
Oh,
line on the
existing
site plan.
bunkie deck. Oh, okay, thank you.
The second line is the bunkie deck.
Thank you. And just to jump off from Member Predko in regard to the replanting, I honestly think in this case, I would not require that. It's such a heavily vegetated property. Wherever the mantle is, it's going to be sparse anyway. Considering the damages that the weather is creating with our forest, I would not require that be part of this as a condition, considering the heavily treated lot that it is. And considering where the building's gonna go, I don't think that's a requirement in this particular case. Just my comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions over here? Member Schmidt?
I just want to say that this is one of those classic examples where you see 109% decent rate numbers, which previously historically would cause big uproar on the lake, social media disputes and all the rest. But when you sit down, you look at the application, see something that is a net benefit to the lake. Yes, I can.
Yeah, thank you for that. Member Hazelton, no questions? Okay, seeing no further questions, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved, the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 26-02 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 150 Sanctuary Lane to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling with an attached deck as described below. Gross floor area permitted is 157.08 square meters and proposed is 234.7 square meters. From existing widths of 16.55 meters to 20.8 meters, and maximum lot coverage from the permitted to proposed of 8.87%. Based on the following conditions: one, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed new single detached dwelling with attached deck is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the agent or owner prepares an erosion and sediment control plan satisfactory to the township and executes the plan throughout the duration of the construction of the proposed development, subject to the minor variance application A26-02. And four, that any vegetation removed or damaged during the construction of the development shall be replaced with native vegetation to the satisfaction of the township. A landscape plan showing the trees to be removed and the types and location of vegetation to be planted is required. Then five, that the application apply for and obtain site plan approval from the Township of Georgian Bay, including, if required, the execution and registration of a site plan agreement against the title of the lands, and incorporate the erosion and control and sediment control plan and the landscape plan into the agreement. And six, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in today's meeting. And I have a final resolution moved by member Predko, seconded by member Hazelton. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment does now adjourn at 12:14 p.m. until March 13, 2026 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Everybody have a fantastic and safe family weekend.